Welcome, everybody. Here we are yet again for our Living Chinuch podcast. We are here as part of Living Chassidus, and our topic today is wrestling and screaming and what to do about it. So we wanted to, we basically have some questions that were submitted from people, and if you'd like to submit questions, you can always send them our way, and we'll try our best to answer as much as we can. Did you want to start with something or after the questions?
No, that's fine. I can start with it. Something that I was thinking about that I've experienced a lot of times, and I've been thinking a lot about what we've been discussing last week or 2 weeks ago, which is, and I think maybe I wasn't clear when I talked about it. I'm pretty sure I wasn't clear. Is that when you ask a kid to do something, and so I said if they're like, don't do it, so you sort of make sure they do it, whether it means holding their hand and doing it. So one of the things I wanted to add to that, like a sort of side point, but an important part of it, is that, and it's the same sort of idea of not talking, and I've been working on this, like being extra careful with it, and it's like beautiful, and it's whatever, it's cool. But the other thing is also don't use your hands to get them. Like if you want a kid to do something and they're not doing it, so you like you tell them to go to the bathroom, let's say, and they're not, and you sort of like push them on, they end up just starting to fight you on it. Or you ask them to do something and they're not, so you try to pull them, I'll just start fighting you against it. And then it just becomes a battle of who's gonna fight stronger. And it becomes weird because you don't know what to do. You're like, on one hand, you're strong, so you just force me, you don't feel comfortable, and the kid's just, you're missing, and you're losing the whole system, what we're doing here. So the trick is to not, and I remember when I had this, I don't remember what stage of my life I had this, but I remember like had this issue, and I learned to not like, don't use your hands at all, and so what I'll do is, so you'll stand behind them, let's say like, I had something this week, one of the kids wanted to do something, and they're like taking time, and so like I wanted to go, so like I started to like push them a little bit, like let's go. And I felt them pushing back, and I realized it was happening. So I stopped. What I'll do is I'll stay behind them, and I'll be like there on their case to make sure that they're going
without touching them.
Yeah, but without touching them.
Right.
And it might, and if you have to figure out what's happening, but because if you're sitting there right next to them, they might like keep on dragging it out. But I'm standing next to them because I'm making sure that they follow through. So I'll stay behind them, and I'll wait. But don't push them forward to like speed it up, or push them or pull them. So I'll just stop, like especially if you pull them one direction, they pull against, and then you get stuck. If you let go, then they think they won. So you don't want to let go. But if you do, it's a mess situation.
Right.
So try hard as you can to not, it's when you ask them to do something and they're going to do it, or you tell them not to go somewhere and they go there, you try to grab them from stopping it. You might have to hold them down to stop, but if you pull them away, they're going to pull the opposite direction. And that's always going to happen. Always, but it's going to happen a lot. The trick is to say something, be there, expecting them by themselves to do it, and try not. And if you notice you're doing it, it's pay attention to it. And another thing I also wanted just to add to what we said before about consistency. I sort of talked about it, and I heard a few people's dealing with it, and this is a very important realization that what happens, especially when you haven't done it, so the kids will fight against it. Now, the way to perceive that when the kids are fighting against it is not that I'm not doing a good job. It's the exact opposite. I'm doing such a good job that they really don't like it. So like they're trying to fight against it because they want it. You've done it. So, but they're fighting against you because they know that they've experienced that you're generally weak and you're going to fall through, and you're not going to hold on to it, and you're going to give in. So when you see them, and they might get a little angry and loud and make noise, and it gets you uncomfortable, but you have to realize this is the sign that this is working. And if I just hold it through and I overcome this screaming or this tantrum, then I win. you know, and that's really sort of, it's a funny thing because it's sort of counterintuitive in a sense because you're like they're getting louder, so it's like you feel like it's getting worse, but really it's not. They're just trying to fight you more up because you're doing the right thing and you're getting there. You're getting somewhere. It's having its effect, and they're not liking it, which means that that the benefit that they're losing is great enough that they're not liking it, and so they're trying to get it. You know, like, yeah.
So just to clarify, just to make sure. So step one is try and win as many small battles so you don't have to
pick your battles.
Pick your battles and try and win as many small battles so you don't have to get into such a situation. Step two is try your hardest to get them to do the thing you ask them to do, whether it's go to the bathroom or climb into the car seat or go to the bath or whatever it is, without you actually grabbing them. So as we spoke about in previous classes, show your body language that you're serious, show your body language that you really mean it. Try not to speak extra, right? Don't become white noise, and try your hardest not to have to touch them. If it reaches a point where you could see it's really, really dragging out and it's a sad situation to reach such a point, so then you take them and get them to do whatever they need to do. But again, that's like at the end, that's one of the last options, because ideally we would want to not have to do that. So that was, is that good?
Yeah.
Okay, just a reminder that there's a question box on the Zoom, so please feel free to submit your questions. Okay, now we have some questions that were sent to us over this past week, and okay, so we have some questions that were submitted to us over this past week, and we wanted to start with, okay, so let's start with this one. So in short, the question was that we have toddlers and they're screaming, and their screaming is feeding off of each other. They find it funny, or they're trying to out scream each other, and we send them to the room because we say it's too loud for us. So we send them to the room to do what they need to do over there. Now, is this the right way of approaching it? How should we approach the situation? So the real question, the number one question that you have here is them screaming intrinsically bad, or do you not really care about it? If you don't really care about it and whatever, it's annoying and it's hurting your ears and you don't want it near you, but you don't intrinsically care about it, so then send them to the room, let them do their shtick. They'll probably get it over and done with, and then they'll come back. If you feel like screaming is actually that it's not such good midas, they shouldn't be doing that. It's not such a good thing to do. And at this point in time, you're not nursing, like you have your hands available, or let's say your husband is home or your wife is home and she's, whatever, you have someone there who's able to take care of this battle. So then you might want to take a different approach. So the different approach is we have to take a look at what's the problem and what's our goal, and then how to resolve that. So the main problem that is leading up to this might be boredom. It might be, lack of positive attention and other things, and like lack of focusing on those things. So maybe turning the situation so that you're able to focus on something positive that they're doing, as opposed to them looking for attention or connection, as it was brought up before, that they're searching for connection. So if that's it, so then maybe try and find an approach for that. Also have in mind that children, all of us generally, feed off of energy. Like if you go and you're, sad and down, and suddenly you walk into a wedding and everyone's happy and dancing and singing and screaming, it affects you. So these two kids have a lot of energy, and they have screaming, and they're like, feeding off of each other. So one of the main things that you could do is to separate them. Not because you're punishing them, but just because you want them not to feed off of each other, because then that climbs and climbs and climbs, and probably the screams get more high pitched and more screechy and more loud and like, ah. So separating them might be a good approach.
Like maybe you can explain that a little more. Like it's saying how would you separate them?
So for example, one idea would be that one of the kids could go to one of the rooms and then the other kid stays and does an activity here, or just like separate them, I mean, physically, but also like separate them from, turn them to separate things, turn them to separate, like their attention to different things. And that way they.
Meaning, it seems like you're saying the separation that you're doing is not like, okay, we got to split up now. It's more just, you're sort of like casually diffuse, like separating them.
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's not like a punishment where like splitting you guys up because you're making too much of a ruckus. It's more like, oh, hey, why don't you play with this? Or maybe you can go to go over there and like try and diffuse the situation so that way they're not feeding off of each other. And another point of it is that our goal in doing all of this is to make how do you say that? Make it less enjoyable for them to scream. Meaning, if for them they're getting a kick out of it. Like, if I could have a place to go scream and like have a fun time, I would also go do it. So it would be pretty fun. But the reality is that by you making something else that's more fun or more enticing or more exciting than screaming, so then you're feeding against it. Like you're taking the attention and you're taking the fun out of the screaming because, hey, mommy and mommy and my other siblings or mommy and Tati are like dancing over there, like they're having a fun time, they're like singing along, or like they're doing something really fun, they're playing with toys, and I'm missing out because I'm still over here screaming. I want to go play over there. Another thing to do is, so another thing to do is that if you are, whatever it is that you're doing that's not where they are, make that super, super fun. And that way they'll end up giving up on it. They'll end up just whatever was happening over there is a lot more enticing. I want to go over there. So those are basically the main points. Point number one is figure out if it's something intrinsically negative, if it's something that you intrinsically don't want and that you think it's not a good thing to happen. If that's something you think it's not a good thing to happen, so then at that point you need to make yourself available or have an adult be there that's available to take care of it and get into that situation and really make sure it gets won. If it's not intrinsically something bad, so then okay, let them do their shtick. That said, if it's bothering you, so then I would say split them up. Not as Sharon said, that not like an aggressive, like, oh, I'm taking you over there and you stay far away from your sister or stay far away from your brother or whatever. It's more of a, okay, how about you do this activity and you do this activity, or maybe
it could be also the way you do it. If you're going to come and say it in a way that like, I don't like them splitting you up, they might want to continue doing it. Mm-hmm. You're not coming to you don't necessarily have to show them, I'm splitting you up because you make too much noise and I don't like it. So they might say like, oh, well, so you can do it in more of like a casual way. Like, oh, can you get me some tissues? Like, oh, I want to read this book. Who wants to read a book? Let's read a book. And that, like, it diffuses that in a very casual way without them like recognizing what's going on. So I know sometimes that I try, like, kids do something, and I try to like speak. And if they if they really want to do it, so they'll do what I ask them, and they'll go back to doing what they want. So if I say, oh, come, we should play something else, in their mind, like, I don't want to play something else. I want to do this fun screaming thing because this is fun. So they're like, oh, I don't want to, whatever, I have nothing, is boring, and I want to go back to screaming. So that's why when you do it more of a casual way, they don't realize that you're stopping this screaming that's uncomfortable for you.
Right.
I think a general principle that we've talked about a few times, and just keep on, it's like, this is the nimshal sort of, is that what it always works on a benefit, like what's more beneficial, and you sell things based off benefit. Like the kid going under the table, it's more beneficial to not hit your head. So too with this screaming, you make it in a way that's not beneficial for them to scream, not in a rough way, but just that's like a casual way, And I noticed that a lot of things kids do, they haven't experienced it enough, so they don't care. That's like they drop The spoon on the floor. I have this a lot. Like Menachem drops, it's like a spoon on the floor, and my instinct that just go pick it up. It's like it's a mistake. But I'm like, no, and I open his chair, let him go down and climb back up. And he does it once. He only does it ever once, like in that meal. He doesn't do it again because it's a hassle. And it's teaching them. It's a very important life lesson. You're teaching them those life skills. But what are we essentially doing? We're showing them that it's not beneficial for whatever it is they're doing. And the more we can show them with whatever we deal with, that's the theory. Like punishment, it's just not beneficial, you know? It's not beneficial to not listen to you. It's not beneficial to stay up late. It's not beneficial to not take a bath, to not go to the party, and stuff like this. And you're trying to teach them what's beneficial in life.
Mm-hmm. And that can also be done, as we spoke about before in previous classes, that can also be done at like not the moment when you're dealing with it. Like the day after, let's say, you could discuss what's the benefits of, speaking nicely to each other. What are the benefits of going to the bath and being clean, and like Hashem wants us to be clean? What are the benefits of brushing our teeth? Like all of these different things. Or what are the benefits of doing homework? I mean, I don't know how many people are dealing with homework, but like all that you can bring about it in like a comfortable, calm time period later on, and then they start to piece things together. I also wanted to share a nachas. I don't think I even told you this yet, but there's a nachas moment today. We had someone who came over for a play date last week and played with one of our toys in a very rough way. So our kids didn't like that. They didn't like they felt like it was about to break, and so they said, please don't do that. And today they came over again. That same child came over for a play date, and I heard that he asked to play with the same toy. He said, can I please play with it? And so one of our kids said to him, not today. Last time you were here, you showed us that you don't know how to play with it properly. Oh. So today you can't play with it. And I was so impressed. So I want to, first of all, give a kol hakavod to our kids. But also you should realize that the more you bring these things out and the more you discuss them, I mean, even if kids are young, they might be 2, they might be 3, even 4 or 5, they start to hop things, they start to mature, and they start to appreciate things, and they start to model the same things that you're modeling for them, that you're doing for them. So I wanted to share that story. Okay, one of the other questions I was asked was, when a family member or an adult or a friend, anybody comes over and there's I mean, it could be 4-year-olds or whatnot. Stories here was a 4-year-old climbs on that family member, and what should we do about it? So they climb on it. What should we do as parents, and what should that person do in handling the situation? So, okay, so one of the most incredible things that you can do, as I said a minute ago, about for bringing with our kids and discussing with them and explaining to them the world and how it works, is this idea of preempt the situation. So if you already know that someone's coming, like for example, today we knew that we were having a play date, and we knew that a friend was coming, and I discussed with the boys what would be the schedule and what they wanted it to be like, because last time they came out a bit not so happy that that boy played a little bit too rough with their toys. So I said, maybe we should put that toy away. And we discussed it. We preempt the situation. So if you know a family member or a friend or a cousin or somebody is coming over, discuss it with the kids beforehand. Say, so-and-so is coming over, and how should we handle the situation? When he walks in, do we hug? Do we say hi? Do we, run over and celebrate the fact that they're here? Like we discuss the situation as it happens, or before it happens, I mean, and that way they're prepared for what's coming next. So for example, if you already know that one of your kids likes to jump on them, let's say, or likes to hug really tight, so then we say, okay, so-and-so is coming. How can we handle the situation? Well, it seems like he or she doesn't like being jumped on. It's not such a nice thing to do. If you were to walk into your classroom, let's say, would you want your Mora or would you want your friends to jump on you and climb on you? Not really. It's not such a pleasant thing. And have a discussion, not pointing fingers, not this is something wrong that you did, not this is like a mistake that you made, but preempt the situation and just have a discussion about it.
Teach them.
Teach them,
Educate.
raise them. This is our job. Our job is to raise our children and help them mature. So discuss the situation with them and preempt it so that they are aware of what are their expectations and what are some good things that they can be doing, and what are some options of what are the things that they can be doing when this situation comes up. Another thing is explain the why. Why is a big topic in Chinuch, in my opinion. It's a big topic in Yiddishkeit, and this is where Sharon and I get our concept of why. The whole idea in Judaism of why.
I want to say this.
Yes, go for it.
It's like the best example of it is if you learn a Sikha the Rebbe. The Rebbe has a question and an answer and the whole stuff in the middle. Now, if the Rebbe wants you to go out and do Miftzayim, why did you say go out and do Miftzayim? He has a question. Why doesn't he just tell you the question and the answer? Why does he explain to you this whole middle part of the Sikha and like all these details? And the reason is because he's explaining to you the why. And he's giving to you to the point, and that's what the Rebbe, they talk about the Rebbe making leaders, not followers. In order to be a leader, you have to understand why. And the same thing, or in Lashon Chassidus, it's called das. Das is that you understand a concept to the point where you connect with them. And what we're trying to achieve with our kids is to give them that das. You don't want your kid to not climb on someone because you told them not to climb. You also want them to listen to you, and if that works, then that one needs to be done at that moment, yes. But ultimately, you want your kid to understand it's not a good idea to do this. And by themselves, they understand. And how do they understand that? It's not just a magical pill. That's your job as a parent to bring these concepts out, or to teach them. Sometimes I'll notice it with us, like a kid do something wrong, and you're unhappy about it. But what's Michal be like? He doesn't understand. Like you're telling him off, but he doesn't realize. So you realize you change your mood, and you explain to them. You say, hey, doing this is not a good idea because this is what happens. And sometimes it's frustrating when they're doing something and then like it's ruined something or break something. But you have to question, do they understand it? And if they don't, so let me explain to them. That's my job, to teach them so they learn. And so too, climbing on someone, if the kid's doing it, if he understands it's not a good idea and he's doing it because he's being rough or whatever, that's something that needs to be discussed. That needs discipline, telling him they shouldn't be doing that. But if he's doing it because he doesn't understand, so that's just, it's a for you explain to them, you say, either you can explain to them in a way they understand, or you just teach them, like, okay, I'm going to teach something new today. People don't enjoy being climbed on, and some kids are younger, they don't really get it,
And they think it's fun. It was fun when they were smaller and they were able to, be tickled. And once they get older and they get bigger, it might be more hurtful for the person who they're climbing on, or, it might be a difference that they haven't realized.
And it's also that for me, it's also very important. I notice that when people play with my kids, that sometimes I do things that aren't what I necessarily enjoy, but they think it's a joke, it's fun. But I don't enjoy it because you're teaching them the wrong message. It's saying something, let's say climbing. Some people don't care about it. So you climb me, I don't have a problem. So they let the kid climb on them. But I don't enjoy it because I don't want my kid climb on people. Yeah, you might not mind it and you think it's funny and it's a joke because it's a kid, but that's not a good thing we want the kids to know. I'm not going to say anything in that situation, but I'm saying as ourselves as parents, we should realize what is the message a kid is getting from what he's doing now. Mm-hmm. If I'm letting him climb on me, first of all, as a parent, it should never happen because it's not respectful. But even if it's something that you don't even like, it's fine, whatever, you have to ask yourself, am I giving over the proper message? Because if you don't want your kid to, and then your kid climbs on someone else, and like, whoa, what's going on? And you're like,
caught off guard.
In your head also, we're very in tune to a lot of things. So we understand that for us in this specific situation, you can do it, but in that situation you can't. But the kid doesn't. He hasn't learned that yet. So you have to ask yourself what the kid is understanding.
Another point on that is, okay, if you reach a point that the person walked in and the child climbed up on them or hurt them or something along those lines, so that's one of those things that you go and you actually deal with at the point in time, or you try your hardest to, let's say if you're nursing, so you try your hardest to like put baby down for a second and go and deal with that, because it could get to the point where they are hurting someone else. They're making someone else uncomfortable, and that could be not pleasant at all. And it could make it hard for that person coming in to enjoy coming into the house, and to enjoy spending time.
It's that like, it's a challenge. Also, you have to understand where it's coming from to deal with it. Because my first instinct was like, if that would happen to my kid, like clearly he shouldn't be doing it. He knows he shouldn't be doing it. So I would treat it in that way. Whereas if your kid doesn't know that, so then you don't have to get all like what are you doing? More like you have to like, it's you see what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I don't mean like go deal with it in an angry way. I meant go deal with it like literally, physically pick him up and say, we don't do that. Not just showing him in that, or showing her in that situation. This is not something that we do. We don't do this. So that's one of the points in time where like it's literally affecting someone else. And so I think that's kind of, again, it's not that they're in trouble and you're out, you're going to punish them, but you have to show them that it's a serious matter, that we don't climb on people, or we don't jump on people, we don't, hurt people, and nothing like that. When it reaches the point of hurting someone else, that's a serious matter, and we take it seriously. Not angry, not upset. It's not a punishment. Again, unless the child is being chutzpahdik, and like that's a whole other discussion. If like they're doing this to hurt someone, that's whatever. We're gonna get to that in a minute. But for the time being, we're assuming she just doesn't realize that she's bigger and it's hurting someone else, or it's like not pleasant for the other person. So being open about it and say this is hurting someone, and really, going to the child's level, having a conversation and say next time so and so comes, we don't climb on people, we don't hurt them, we don't punch them when they come home, like all of these things, like we have to make sure to explain it to them at that point in time. Another point of it is that this is a wonderful opportunity to teach them social cues, to teach them to be sensitive, to realize what the other person is feeling. It could be using that person, and that person being there. Let's say it's, a cousin or something, and the cousin just got toppled over because the younger cousin was so excited. She like ran and like backed into her. So then we stop the situation. We say, okay, 1 second. And we speak to the child who ran, and we say, do you think that was comfortable for that person? Like, do you think falling over was a fun thing? And explain to them, we have to be aware of what are other people's space, other people's feelings, what those people are telling us. This might be fun for me, but if it's not fun for someone else, it's no gain for anybody. We don't gain from having fun myself and then hurting someone else. And that's a lesson to be discussed at that point in time. And also the next day, you're having breakfast, you're nice and calm, and you say, next time someone comes over, and you, so to speak, preempt the next situation by having a discussion about what happened, not in a way of getting them to feel guilty or making them feel bad or nothing negative. You just want to educate them and give them those tools to be in tune with social skills, to be in tune with the cues of other people's feelings. So just talking to them about it and explaining to them that, it could be hurting someone else. Okay, which leads on to one other question, and then we're going to take a slight turn. So one more question still within this realm of like wrestling, hitting, jumping on each other, all of that. So there was a question about siblings wrestling. What should we do about siblings wrestling? On the one hand, it's seen as like, either boys will be boys, or like whatever, girls will be like, scratchy and like whatever, they're, divas or whatever you want to call it, and sometimes we take it for granted that like, okay, siblings will fight. They'll pull each other's hairs and scratch each other and whatever. On the other hand, we have to realize that whatever we allow in our home is our choice. Just because the people next door allow their kids to screech and scratch and jump and climb and, topple each other, doesn't necessarily mean that that's what boys will be boys means. It doesn't necessarily mean that that's what you want to allow in your home. So again, sometimes we take it for granted, like, oh yeah, whatever, let them be, let them do, and like this is just normal for siblings. On the other hand, just be aware that it does make an impact, the things that you allow in the home and the things that you give credence to. You, okay, fine, boys are boys, they'll break toys and they'll chuck stuff out the window. Like, realize that you make a decision, you make a conscious decision with every action that you take and everything in your home. So the flip side, hi, one of the things to think about is, where is this coming from? Is this coming from they're lacking attention, connection, whatever, they're bored and they need to turn their their energy towards something positive, they need to turn their energy towards a different activity. So that's one topic, that's okay. So let's turn our energy towards something positive. Let's give them a good place to use their energy. Let's give them either separate toys. Sometimes I do that. I'm like, okay, maybe you can play with magnet tiles and you can play with the train tracks, and that way they're not on each other's hairs. So there's also being sensitive. Like, sometimes I know for myself, especially when it's in the morning and like my nefesh kiss hasn't fully settled inside of me. So I walk in and I'm like, why are you guys fighting? Like, just like, but meanwhile, I didn't take the time to think like, oh, 1 second, they're arguing over the same toy. This is not boys will be boys, they'll fight it out. It's more of where are my boundaries? Am I learning to share? Is this my turn? Is this your turn? Do I take different toy? Am I, sensitive to other people's feelings and say, okay, fine, I'll give up my toy this time. Can I have it back in 5 minutes? So sometimes we come into a situation of fighting, but we haven't realized and we haven't really thought about what led to this. And so if it's a situation of where they're arguing over the same toy, so you need to have some sort of plan. Either say, one of our rules we have in our house is 5 minutes, 5 minutes. And I go and I put a timer, or now they know how to read, the clock. And so like, okay, fine, you can play with it for 5 minutes and you can play. And then in 5 minutes, I get it back. And it works most of the time. But it's all these different situations that like, okay, let's figure out why they're fighting, not just deal with the fighting, or wrestling or whatever.
It's also, are they wrestling just them playing, or are they wrestling because of an issue with the toy?
Right, that's another very good question. And then another point of it is, are we teaching them to hit? Are we teaching them to tackle? Are we teaching them to harm someone else, so to speak? And yes, sometimes we have to just let it go, and sometimes we have to, there's situations and there's a time and a place for everything. But just be aware that the things that we allow teach the kids that this is something that's okay. Again, if there's an exception, and for whatever reason you can't deal with it at that point, and so then there's an exception.
Also, you can talk about it after.
Yes.
Not even in a certain sense, it brings it home more. If a day later you come, you discuss it, the kid realizes that this is important, because it's that important that you waited a day, that a day later you're still thinking about it.
Right. So yeah. So basically, realize what the things you're allowing is showing them that these are okay activities. These are okay things to do. So be aware. What are you willing to? What do you want? What are the lessons you want your children to learn? And what is that long-term impact on them? It's not just the battle now, but it's what's the long-term impact on it. And not only that, but if you take that moment as a learning situation and you teach them how to deal with their disagreements, if it's a disagreement, again, if it's boredom, you shift them over to something else. But if it's a disagreement, this is a wonderful opportunity for you to teach them how to deal with that disagreement, and how to deal with that. I want the toy, but he has the toy, and I want 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Or whether it's, okay, you take this toy and he'll take that toy, or neither one of you plays with the toy. Like, whatever it is, whichever situation, whichever solution you want to pose, realize that you can give them tools of how to deal with the same situation again in the future. Okay. Let me just check if there's any questions. Again, if you would like to. Oh, I might have missed this, but what if it's a playful type of wrestling? Yes, go for it.
So part of so we had a question that what happens if it's wrestling? We'll take the example if it's playful wrestling. Should we just let him wrestle it out, or should we do something about it? So and let them sort of learn. Let's say they'll get hurt a little bit, and they'll realize it's not worth to do it. So the problem with letting them play it out and let them get hurt a little bit, and they'll figure it out, is generally they won't, because they're having a good time, let's say for 10 minutes, and then they get hurt. And I see with my kids also. They'll do something, and then they might get hurt. But they had so much fun for the last 10 minutes, so that 1 second of pain is not enough for them to learn that it's not worth it. And I'll just continue doing it. I'll take, one out of every 10 minutes, for every 10 minutes, one little bit of pain, it's worth having the good time that I'm having. So letting them sort of deal with it is not so good. Now, the question you have to ask yourself is, what type of kids do you want? Meaning, you might be, I don't care, the kids a little bit, they rest a little bit. That's that. But if you don't, so then you need to either, like we talked about before, you either separate them or tell them you don't like it. But you need to explain why. It's like the marshal of the Sikha. There's a problem, there's a question, and there's an answer. But the Rebbe doesn't give you just the answer. You don't just say you should stop it. You have to explain the middle bit, and you want them to understand it the way you understand it. So then they won't do it because they don't. It's not a good idea, not because you told them not a good idea, not because you explained them it's a good idea. It's because they themselves know it's not a good idea. And so it takes time. And it could be you can't do it then. It could be you can do it later. And if anything, it is better later. You could just say, I don't like the way you guys are playing. It's very rough. Let's get something else to play with. And normally you'll have to find something to help them figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, I don't see any questions right now, but reminder, you can send in your questions to the question chat. Okay. So there was, move on to the next. Yeah. There was another question, which actually led to a really, really, really great topic. So the question was, what if you're offering a child, a toddler, let's say, 2 options? Then the child chooses neither. And then, so therefore the parent has to choose for them or moves forward with one of the options. And then the toddler gets upset and they are not happy about it. So if let's say one of the options, let's say, would be to say Shema, and the child, the tati or the mommy says, okay, would you like to say Shema with me, or would you like to say Shema on your own? And so the child chooses not to choose, which is a choice in of itself. And so the parent, has to do something. So the parent starts saying Shema for the child or with the child. And then the child gets upset because this is not, you're not doing what I want you to do. But again, they didn't communicate what it is that they wanted done. So it gets really tricky. So this question actually led up to a really, really great, really great conversation. And okay, so
can I say a story?
Go for it. Yeah.
2 stories in connection to this, and you'll explain it and be explained.
Okay.
Years ago, when I was a teenager, I went somewhere, whatever, and I was on the way back with this person I was working with, and I had all these kids. I had a lot of kids, maybe 8 kids. We went into a shoe store. Wanted to buy shoes for them. I don't know why right then, but we went, and these kids were out of control, and this poor shoe store had all these kids, and the father would go with each kid, like a 3-year-old kid, and he'd tell him, which shoe do you want to go pick out the shoes? And the 3-year-old kid can't make such choices. A shoe store with tons of shoes just doesn't work. And it took forever, and the kid kept complaining on this one, on this one, on this one. And it was like shocking to me. And so I spoke about it with my father after, like the whole story. I was like, this is crazy. Like, it take forever, every kid. And so my father told me, he goes, essentially, what are you giving the kid choices? He doesn't need choices. You want to give him choices. So you pick out 2, 3 pairs of shoes that you find acceptable, and you say, hey, choose. And then the kid gets to choose. And how it's going to take to choose 3, 1 out of 3. And there's another story. I don't know, somewhere. I was ready in yeshiva, and there was a guy had a kid. Also, the kid was out of control, and the father said it was like shocks me till this day. It was a Shabbos meal, and they had salsa and the orange juice on the table. So the father and the kid was, I think he was under Sharon age. The father said to the kid, he goes, whatever the kid's name, Mendy, do you want salsa or do you want orange juice? Do you want salsa with orange juice? Do you want first the orange juice and then the salsa, or the salsa and the orange juice? And I looked at him and I was like, just give him a drink. And he goes, but I want to give him choices. You're falling off the edge of the cliff. You're giving choices. You're making life complicated. The kid doesn't care. You make him complicated. Kids do need to learn how to make choices. That's not learning how to make choices. When you go to the supermarket, especially Kosher supermarket, there's not 50 million choices of what you can have. There's 2, 3 types of apples, and your choice is based off something specific that you have in mind what you want. The kid doesn't have that. So you're offering things like, who cares? Why make the kid complicated? And it's general. It's not necessarily specific to this exact case, but like, it's healthy to give choices, but you have to know when to give the choice and when not. You don't give the kid a choice to go to the bathroom or not, or the choice to put on his shoes or not before you go outside. Why don't I give a choice? Because it just doesn't make sense to give a choice. You have to figure out the situation whether you should be giving a choice or not.
So that brought up a whole discussion on both of our ends about choices. And the conclusion that we came up with, which is again Torah-based, is that Hashem gives us choices when it doesn't make a difference to Hashem. So at that point in time, we have to take a moment and bring that back down into our world and say, okay, if it bothers you that your child should say, let's say Shema, or should make a bracha, or should eat kosher, if it's something that it really makes an impact for you, so then in that situation, it's possible it may not make sense to give that choice. So for example, if you reach the situation where, let's say it's making a bracha on food, or it's saying Shema, or it's lighting Shabbos candles, or whatever, so then just this is the way we do it. Mommy says it with you, or like set a standard, because otherwise you're getting into a situation where it does affect you. It does bother you if she doesn't, or it does bother you if he doesn't, if he doesn't keep up with that choice, or he doesn't, follow through.
I should add to that. Like, there's a story there, Rebbe, that they ever wrote a letter to a guy. This person wrote a whole article that I think it was like modern Orthodox. He wrote a whole article about basically his child got like 12 years old. I think it was his daughter maybe. And he said, and basically the whole article was about how he asked his daughter whether she wanted to go to learn like Limudei Kodesh, or also learn like Teklasad or something, learn a Jewish school or like non-Jewish school. And she chose to learn in the Jewish school. So she should have a good Jewish education. And he was like so proud of himself. I gave her the option and she chose career so good, and he was so happy. So they wrote him a letter. He goes, I read your article and like I'm totally against it. And he goes, it doesn't make sense what you're saying. He goes, and the proof is that you wouldn't give her a choice whether she could learn in school or not. She's 12, 13 years old. You're not going to say, do you want to go to school or do you want to stay at home and do nothing? You didn't get that choice. So he's saying it's sort of the same thing. He's like, yeah, and you're lucky. He's like, basically, you're lucky that she chose to go to Jewish school. He goes, but that shouldn't have been a choice. And it's like what you're saying, things that are important, it shouldn't be really a choice. But together with that, when it comes to, let's say, brachas and like this, it's not the end of the world. It took me a little bit of time to realize that, like, suddenly a kid doesn't want to say a bracha or something, so we think the world's coming to an end. What's going to be with my kid? Kid is a perfectly good kid, normal kid, doesn't want to say brachas down. So you find the situation. It could be, before breakfast and he's hungry and he's on the mood, and it's like, pick your battles, and you have to figure out where it's coming from and whether it's worth picking your battles. If you're consistent on it normally, then the kid will naturally just get used to doing it. But like, you don't have to go crazy on it. Like I'm saying, of course you want him to do it, but like, you want it to be enjoyable. It's very important to be enjoyable. When Menachem's, what's his name, Melamed, he gave a whole speech to us, and he said it's important, like to the whole class, all the parents.
Yeah.
So it's important that the kid enjoys, should have good experiences. And he really hit us over the head about this. Make sure they enjoy it, and that's the important thing. And it's the same thing, they make if they don't want to, so maybe you say, say this first word. Then you jump up and down, you give them a shoulder ride, you make it so exciting, they're like, wow, this is good. And you make them feel that positive energy coming with these things, and that's what you're trying to do. And also a lot of it from this is like what I realized. It's like one time I saw one of my kids sing brachos like super fast. And I'm like, what is he doing? And then I was honest with myself a little bit, and I'm like, whoa. Like, where did he learn this from? He learned it from me. I'm like, whoa, I'm the one who's doing it, and a lot of these things we want a change in our kids. Well, the person to look for is in ourselves, and it is a story that I remember one of these Litvish Gedalim, his the Rebbe of the Gadol's child came to him and he said, how did you teach your son how to say brachas so nicely? He said, such a kavana, it's amazing. He goes, I actually never taught him how to say brachas. Because probably Mr. saw me sing a bracha, and that's how he learned. And what he was trying to say was I didn't teach him. You show him, and what's important to you is what your kid gets. And I've seen this with a lot of people growing up, like people that I grew up with, and their parents and their kid and how they behave, and myself, and I think a lot of people, and people talk to me about this a lot. How much, what they grew up with. It's not what they got told to do, but it's what they saw when the parents. And more than telling your kid to say the bracha, work on yourself to really care about it, and the kids will get that message automatically, and it'll be a lot more, I really care for it, and,
Yeah. I want to also make a disclaimer. This is not a bash all choices,
we said you can make choices.
Right. So again, it's allowing them to make choices and things that you don't care which choice they make, or you don't even care if they don't make a choice. So,
but don't come and say tomorrow you have to say the bracha. You don't need brachas, you say the bracha. If for the last 6 months, since the starting brachas, you were easygoing.
On it, right? So but also set a standard. Like for example, if make and preempt the situation. Okay, we're gonna say Shema later. If you don't want to say Shema, then mommy's gonna say it for you. Or we're gonna light candles later. This is how we're gonna light candles. First you're gonna light, and mommy's gonna help you, and then mommy's gonna light, and then preempt the situation so that they know what are the expectations, and set the expectation. If it really matters to you, set the expectation. That way they know what's coming up, as opposed to leaving it open and then getting stuck. Especially I get stuck with this as well, that it's like I'm in the middle of a bracha, so I can't really make a hefsek to stop them and tell them and da da da. So what I started doing is I say brachas before, and then afterwards I go and I help them, or and also, whatever. It's an example. But
to add to it is that essentially your job as a parent for kids under bar mitzvah, bat mitzvah, is chinuch. The obligation not that they say the bracha inside the mitzvah and the bracha inside. Your obligation to teach them so they have those skills. The kid at 2 years old, he's going to learn how to say brachas. He's not going to come bar mitzvah and he's not going to know how to say morning brachas, or bar mitzvah, how to light candles. They're going to know. And every kid, it's not like one set standard. You have to know the child. We see with our kids are like in certain areas are like totally extremes from each other. You have to know the child. You have to know what goes, what doesn't go, and relax. Listen, I also think about what happened through my life and how and our kids are growing up in totally different environments than we all did, most of us for sure, and we all figured it out. We turned out pretty fine.
We turned out.
I speak for myself, and I think all of you. The fact we're all here, it means we did good. And so don't worry about it. The kids will be fine. And you can take a deep breath and be fine. One day, doesn't say the brachas, it's not the end of the world.
Okay, now I wanna finish off with a very, very important topic that is based off of this question. And I think it's important to discuss that part of the question was that the child got upset and they were sad about it. They cried, whether it was a tantrum or whatever it was. And I want to, I'm speaking to myself, I'm preaching to this choir, don't worry, but I want to remind all of us, don't let it get to you. Don't let it get to you. It's okay. Okay, so a child was upset and they weren't happy. It's all right. It's okay. We don't have to ensure that our children are happy every single step of the way, every single moment of the day. Part of childhood is learning to deal with situations that they're not comfortable with, learning to deal with situations where mommy and tati said no and I'm still not happy about it, or mommy and tati moved forward and okay, so step one is just don't let it get to you. Okay, so they're crying and they're not happy about the fact that however you dealt with the situation. Okay, it is what it is. Sharon's going to discuss what's the next step after this, but I want to make sure it's very clear that when a toddler is unhappy, that's all right. Like, it happens. They're toddlers, like I also get unhappy and that's fine. And we don't have to say I'm a bad mom, or we don't have to say I dealt with this wrong. Sometimes the way we dealt with it leads for them to cry, and that was the right way of dealing with it. So let's say you moved forward and you did what you needed to do and they're unhappy. Okay, that's all right. It's not, it happens. Our life has unhappy moments sometimes, and that's just the way Galus works. So again, don't let it get to you. Just keep on going. Now Sharon's going to explain how to keep on going.
One of the things is also, like little kids, they're unhappy. Little kids can be unhappy 1 second and very happy the next second. It's not, I think we take it too personally sometimes. And if you're doing the right thing, then you do the right thing. And what you can do is explain to the kid, listen, next time, like in the case you gave him 2 options and they didn't choose, so you went and did whatever you had to do, and they can't complain, you get to choose. You get to choose. You didn't choose. I gave you the option, you choose. You don't have to make a big deal out of it. You say, listen, I gave you the option and you didn't choose, so I did it. He cries.
This is what happens when you don't choose.
Yeah, and that's exactly the message. You're right. Showing them that, hey, if you want the outcome to be different, next time make a choice. And that's something you can, every time that happens, if they continue doing the same thing, you just continue saying that in a nice, calm way, making sure they understand that, because it's not your problem. Your job as a parent is not to make your kids never be unhappy. It's like if you're not uncomfortable ever in life, it means you're not doing anything that's worthy of anything. And so to the kids, it's like if Gordon says that his father, before, like, as he was getting older, before he passed away, he spoke to all the kids individually, and he's told them all, very interesting, he said, don't be afraid to tell your kids what they need to hear. Mm-hmm. And it's like such an interesting thing to tell your kids. You should make sure. And he said I go and explain, he goes, he thinks that he felt like in America, you have to be nice and PC, you can't tell things as they need to be told. And he was telling them, his parting message is be able to tell your kid what they need to hear. And I'm not saying here you have to, especially our young kids, we don't have to go crazy, but the point is, your job is not to make a kid always happy. Your job is to teach your kid and raise your kid, give your kid tools how to live a life of Torah and Yiddishkeit, and understand that the only thing that's important in the world is God. Everything else is tough, is secondary to these things. And that's your job. Kids not always going to be happy. A kid sometimes wanted to say the bracha. So, you got to say the bracha. What's the big deal?
Right. And then the next point that Sharon was saying, which is also very important, is to move on to something else.
Yeah.
Just as them, I've actually seen this, one of my, at one particular situation, but it's happened many, many times. It's one of my kids was like, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened. And a total and crying, and as if the world is falling apart. And then I said something like, hey, does somebody want strawberries? And they were like, yeah, me. And it was just such a quick jump between the world is coming to an end to oh, I want strawberries. So you can totally take that moment, let's say, say that bracha for them and move on and take something else. Hey, let's go dance, or hey, let's play this game, and like try to just let it go and let it go for yourself, and also let them let it go. Change the topic, change the mood, change the energy, and just move forward, move past it.
And also question yourself if maybe you're getting them to do too much. Maybe they're not on the level to be able to do it. And we did that. We had one of the kids when we cut down the even though he can say a lot of these brachas, but we still just a hassle for him. And just like
it was too long.
Yeah, listen, when he's bar mitzvah, he's going to be able to say all the brachas, no problems. So just leave it. In school, his whole davening was less than what we're getting to do.
Yeah,
it's fine. Let him eat breakfast and enjoy.
Yeah. So I hope this was helpful. If you have any questions, wait one more second, just in case you want to send in some questions. But just to review, so we learned today about screaming and negative situations where friends or siblings are feeding off of each other. We learned to separate them, not in an angry way, but just to help them not feed off of each other. We also learned to make the positive choice more fun. That way they're not gaining from doing a negative thing because it's fun or funny. We also learned to preempt situations. For example, if a situation is coming up, have a discussion with the child about, this is what happens when so-and-so comes in the door. Maybe we shouldn't climb on them, or be sensitive to some other people's, space, be sensitive to other people's feelings. This might be hurting someone else, and now you're becoming a much bigger girl, and it hurts them when you jump on them, for example, or explaining those social cues. We also discussed about discussing these things in calm situations. You have to deal with it at the time, but if you really want them to get the message, you want to discuss it when it's calm. We also learned about wrestling and being physical, and it's a choice whether you would like to allow that in your home, and what is the long-term message that you want your kids to get from it. And last but not least, we learned about choices. Which choices you should allow, which primarily are the choices you really do not care about. Like, does their dolly wear this pink dress, or does their dolly wear the purple dress? Does it make a difference to you? That's a beautiful choice for her. Or, do you want the truck to drive up this street, or do you want the truck to drive up this, this ramp? That's a beautiful choice that they should be making, and you should allow them to make that choice.
Or they can choose. You can give them two options of, let's say, clothes to wear.
Yes, two options of clothes to wear, that type of thing. That's a wonderful choice. And the litmus test is, does this choice bother me? If they don't make a choice, or if they choose one of the things, does it bother me? If it bothers you, then maybe don't make it a choice, and just start to set it as the standard. Now we do this. Now we say my da'ani together, and just do it. And if whatever choice you made makes them upset, don't worry about it. They're young. They're not going to remember this. Exactly. When they're chas v'shalom, they should never have to go to therapy, but they're not going to remember this when they were, 1-year-old, 2-year-old, 3-year-old. It's a wonderful, beautiful thing that they have. It's a lesson for them to learn that they can move on, and not everything always works out, roses and rainbows. And another thing is to move on. Let it go. Let it go for yourself. It doesn't make it. This doesn't show anything negative on you or your parenting. And sometimes your right choice does equal them crying, does equal them being unhappy, and that is still the right choice. So just let it go for yourself and let it go for them. They're young. Go play something. Put on some music. Pull out their favorite toy. Is it healthy for brothers to wrestle sometimes?
It's up to you. What do you want the kids to be like?
Right. I think we kind of discussed that one earlier. So you can rewind and watch that a little bit. But it depends what kind of a home, and what do you think is the education that what do you think is the education that you want to give to your children? Is that the kind of environment you want them to grow up in? And is that the type of environment that you want them, that if you're in public, that they're going to be doing that and you're okay with that? So then that's your choice. You have to figure that one out. Okay. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining, and see you guys next week. Oh, reminder, send your questions. This works really well when we have questions. Have a good week, everybody.